You're listening to A Slice of Therapy with me, Alun Parry. When I was a child, every year it seemed we would holiday in the northwest seaside resort of Blackpool. And one of the things that was particularly distinct about Blackpool is it had 3 piers. And they would stretch out into the sea, but there'd be all sorts of attractions on it. And one of the attractions I remember there as a little boy was a fortune teller. Now, the fortune teller, you could go inside this little room and you'd give some money to the fortune teller. She would tell your fortune. She would let you know what your future was. And of course, I was small, so I didn't go in. But nonetheless, it always kind of interested me that this was the case, that someone was able to tell your fortune, was able to look into your future. And the other thing that I used to think is, what would happen? What would happen if they were to tell you something? And I don't know, they're just making it up. What if it's like a little bit of fun, but really you end up believing it? What if they say you're going to meet the person of your dreams, who you'll spend the rest of your life with, and you're going to meet them at age 30? Maybe at the age of 25, you'd meet the real person of your dreams, and because the age was wrong, you assume it's not them, even though it is, and then you let them go. And then 5, 6, 7 years pass, and this other person doesn't show up. And I'm thinking of this because we're fortune tellers for ourselves all the time, aren't we? We're constantly predicting our own future. And we do this with these wonderful resources that we all have, which is the imagination. And the imagination is an amazing thing, because what we'll often do with our imaginations is we'll look forward and predict what's going to happen. So to give you an example, you might be invited to a party and you'll be wondering about, getting ready to go. And then you think, I'm not going to go to that because it's not going to be much fun, or the people there aren't going to like me. And in that moment where, we're basically telling our own fortunes in just the same way as the fortune teller did. And in the same way, of course, just as a fortune teller might make a prediction that may not actually be real, we might well be doing the same. Now, with the example with the fortune teller, it led to us making decisions that didn't actually serve us. It means that rather than grab the right person for us at 25, we wait until we're 30 because that's what the fortune teller said. It can change our behaviour. And in exactly the same way, when we use our imaginations to be our fortune teller and we dream up scary stories for ourselves, then we can come up with exactly the same behaviour changing futures for ourselves, just as if we'd paid the money on Blackpool Pier. And so what I want to look at in this question, in this episode, is a really powerful question. A powerful question by which we can test a lot of our kind of future beliefs against, our future predictions against. Because we'll often limit ourselves based on the kind of endings to our stories. Now, sometimes we'll use our imaginations to create a happy ending, in which case that's fine because that sounds like it's resourceful. And a belief that is helpful to us in terms of getting us to where we want to get to, I guess it doesn't really matter, whether that's an accurate future or not, because it's a resource. It helps us out. And it helps us be more likely to get to where we want to be. But those stories which are the very opposite of happy endings, where we're sat in that movie cinema of our mind and we play it forward beyond the present date to a really unhappy ending, a really kind of tragic ending, where we'll say, well, I'm not going to the party because this bad thing will happen, that the people won't like me, or I'm going to have a terrible time. The question that is a really powerful one to hold against these future stories that we imagine for ourselves, these scary stories that we imagine for ourselves, is simply, is it true? Now, it's only 3 words long, but there's a lot of power in that question. Because often what we'll do is we will treat our own fortune teller in our mind as if it's completely accurate, and we won't even give it a second glance. The fortune teller on Blackpool Pier, we might well take that with a grain of salt, but our own stories are much more likely to change our behaviour than the Blackpool fortune teller's is. And so, whenever we get ourselves into these scary stories, it can be helpful just to take a time out and say, is it true? Now, these scary stories that we tell ourselves aren't always about the future. Sometimes those scary stories are about the past. Sometimes those scary stories are, I said this to that person, and are they thinking this now? And we get into a panic. And we'll say, oh, they don't like me anymore because I said that and they seem to take it the wrong way and they hate me now. And again, it's another scary story. Another scary story, which is actually going to change our future behaviour. Now, this is the thing with scary stories. Our bodies respond to them. Our bodies are actually designed to respond to scare. And so when we tell ourselves a scary story, it actually does change our behaviour. Now, before I was a therapist, I had a background in the performing arts. And so one of the things that I would often experience is going on stage in order to perform as a musician. And if I tell myself a scary story, which was, oh, this audience are going to hate me, I'm not their cup of tea at all, I bet they're wishing that I get off as soon as possible, then that would actually impact my behaviour. That would actually impact my performance. I'd go into my shell more. I wouldn't make a connection with the audience in quite the same way. As if I told myself a story which was more of a happy ending story, which is, oh, they're really going to enjoy me. I'm exactly the kind of musician that they're wanting to see at the moment. And so once again, faced with the scary story, any kind of scary story which actually changes our future behaviour, then that question, is it true, is a really powerful one. Because let's test it out. If I am going to a party and I'm thinking the people won't like me or I'm not going to have a good time, like, is it actually true? Or is it just a story? Well, obviously, I don't know whether it's true because it's in the future. And so, if it's in the future, it can't be, can it? It can't be true. Like, it might turn out that way as a prediction. It's possible. But is it true? Well, no, it's not true. It's just a story at this point. When I think that this person doesn't like me, is it true? Well, I've not found that out, so it's still just a story. And in exactly the same way, when I stand on stage and say this audience are going to really hate me, is it true? Well, no, it's not. It's just a story. And so when we can actually notice these kind of fortune tellings that change our future behaviour in a way which takes us away from the things that we most want to happen, it's really useful to be able to separate whether it's true or whether it's a story. Now, if the future tale is one which is resourceful, which is helping you get to where you want to, then the truth doesn't really matter so much. But when we're telling ourselves something and giving ourselves a scary story to believe in, then being able to separate whether it's actual fact or just a story can be really, really useful in terms of helping us drop that. And so to summarise, what we've looked at in this episode is to look at the fortune tellers that I experienced on Blackpool Pier and to reach that understanding that every day of our lives, really, we're our own fortune tellers with the various kinds of scary stories that we tell ourselves that actually do impact our future behaviour. And that whenever we're faced with a situation where we're telling ourselves a scary story, where we imagine for ourselves a scary future, then what we can do is we can hold that up to some sort of inspection and find out whether it's a story or whether it's fact. And we can do that with 3 simple words. Is this true? Like, is this absolutely true? Do we know for sure that this is the case? And if we can't answer yes to that question, then it's just a story. And the great things about stories is we don't need to attach to stories. We can let them go. And so if this is helpful to you at all, then please share it with others. Also give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, that really helps. You can work with me directly, of course. I'm Alun Parry, and you'll find out more about me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And of course, subscribe to the podcast because it's completely free and you'll never miss an episode again. So thanks for listening. I'll be back again tomorrow with another one.